Hi, welcome to Directions. My name is Jay West and I'm your host. We started this show to interview people who have had directional changes in their life. And my guest this morning has had several. His name is Mitch Bollig. Welcome, Mitch. Good to see you.
Jay, great seeing you. Always good seeing you. It's always fun getting to catch up with you and talk with you. I told my wife today, I was telling her that it's the camera that adds 10 pounds to me.
10? For me, it's like, I'm like a blimp. So.
She wasn't buying it though. She didn't believe me. And I also tried convincing her I'm a TV star now, but she wasn't buying that either.
You were already a TV star. You have experience in technology and all this camera stuff and everything else. So, and you've been in front of the camera and behind the camera actually. So
a little bit. Yeah. But our wives, they humble us. They keep us humble. So we got to appreciate them.
I'm not even going to respond to that one. I might get in trouble. So anyway, tell me a little bit about your background. Let's start with how you met your wife, since you brought that up. Because that's definitely a directional change. And,
yeah, that is a wild story. It's one of those stories where I'm like, okay, if it wasn't God, there's no way that this would have ever made sense. If you try to replicate it again, like I don't think it could have ever happened again. It just had to have been God. So we actually met on Instagram.
Okay.
Off of Instagram. And I was at one point in time, I was sponsored. I'm a musician, a worship leader. And so I was sponsored by a Russian guitar company. Don't worry, it was before the war, y'all. Let's clarify that. But so I was sponsored by this Russian guitar company.
Which war is that? The Civil War?
Right. Or the conflict. Let's call it the conflict. The conflict. But so I was sponsored by this guitar company, and basically they had sent me a guitar, and I was making videos playing the guitar, and they had, I think it was like 70,000 followers or something like that. And so they would take the videos and they would share it with their followers and kind of like to promote their instruments or whatever. And my wife saw one of those videos, and she liked one of them. Mm-hmm. And then I saw her Instagram page, and I was like, wow, she's pretty cute. And she was a worship leader at that time too. So she was leading worship in South Korea. And it was like, wow, she's Christian. So we started talking.
So that's where, because we said before, you said she's from the Philippines, but in my mind, I thought she was from South Korea. I knew there was a South Korea connection in there somewhere.
Yes. So. She worked in South Korea for 7 years.
Okay.
But so yeah, we started talking. One thing led to another. I ended up going to South Korea to meet her in person, and we both knew that our next step in our journey was going to be marriage. So we never really had like an engagement period. It was kind of crazy. It was just, we met only one time in person, and I think I was in Korea for like 2 weeks. But then I told her, I made a promise to her. I said, no matter how long it takes, I'll come back and marry you. And it ended up taking me over a year. I wish it would have been a few weeks or something like that. But it took over a year before I could move to South Korea. And when we got there, we got married the same day that I landed. That was pretty funny. So we got married, and this was in 2020. So then COVID hit and the world shut down. But yeah, I lived in South Korea for a year. Yeah, that's how we met. And then we had to go through the whole green card process, which was a crazy journey for her to get back here to the United States, and that took over 2 years of us waiting.
So you went through a major directional change. You went from playing guitar on Instagram by a company in Russia. This is a very international story. It involves Russia, United States, Philippines, South Korea, and this girl starts liking your music. And I mean, you hear about, how did you know it wasn't, I know it was God, okay? But you hear about all these international scams kind of thing, I mean, did that cross your mind at all that she might not be legit? Or?
No, love is blind. Now, my dad, on the other hand, he was more cautious and more, I think, protective of me. And I didn't tell my parents at all about anything until I had bought the airplane ticket.
Okay.
So I told them, oh, hey, by the way, I'm going to South Korea. And they were like, wait, what? What's going on?
Did you already have your passport?
Yep, I got my passport and everything. And so Yeah, and I just told him going to South Korea, and my dad he was freaked out, but we've been married now for 4 years, and they know her, and they absolutely love her and adore her. So
So you got one up on your dad, who's Tom, right?
yeah,
Then you can say, oh, next time you make a major decision, you say, well, remember the last one, how well it worked out? Give me some grace here.
that's right. Come to me for advice now.
That's right. That's right. So anyway, so that's really cool. Um, you had a directional change. She had a directional change to move from her. You went over to see her, but she moved over here to live with you. So how was that for
Right.
her?
Pretty good. She adjusted very well. Now for me, Omaha, no offense, Omaha, but for a long time, I never really liked living in Omaha. I'll just be honest with you. I'm born and raised here. I had spent some time traveling throughout the South, and I loved pretty much all the places I went to. I really loved, and I never really saw myself as like staying long term in this area. And then after living in Seoul, like, loving Korea and stuff like that. But so I would always tell my wife, I was like, oh, Omaha's boring, nothing to do here. But once she got here, she was like, what are you talking about? This place is awesome. What do you mean? Like, this is great. I remember when she first landed too, we were driving, it was like late at night. And so we were driving through downtown. She's like, this is like an amazing city. And since then, I need to let you all know, just to make sure, I'm good with everyone. I've actually really loved Omaha, love Nebraska now. And so for me, it's kind of been a strange shift within, honestly, like the last few months where I'm like, actually, I could see ourselves living long term here. Like this
How
isn't
old are
bad.
you?
29.
You're 29. So you're just 4 years beyond me and my living here. Okay, but I wasn't born here.
Right.
And I was born in San Diego, and there's a lot to do in San Diego, okay? You've got beaches, you've got the amusement parks, you got all sorts of professional sporting teams, college teams, you
Right.
got the desert. I mean, there's a lot to do. And so I'm kind of with you, Omaha in the Midwest, I would never have picked Omaha. I moved here from Dallas. There's a lot to do in Dallas. I would never have picked Omaha, but God called us here, and I'm in my 25th year, and I love it here. Uh, Outside of the real cold and snow, I don't like that.
Right.
Growing up on the beach, it's totally different.
Absolutely. And
But
I wasn't from the beach either, or like an area that has, obviously we're like one of the most landlocked places, but yeah, like every time by the ocean, all the time, like whenever I would travel back, I've been to South Korea 5 times now. So all the time I'm like, let's go to the ocean. Let's be by the sea. Like I love the ocean.
you've been to South Korea 5 times. I've been to South Omaha 5 times. So
Let's go. Yeah.
So yeah, but Omaha has a lot to offer, and I do
Yeah.
like it here. And God's been good to us here, and had a lot of favor here
That's right.
in most areas. And so yeah, I'm still called here, and I like it. So, all right, let's segue. Well, what's your wife's name anyway?
Dari.
You're sorry you didn't tell me? What?
Dari's her name.
Okay. So maybe we'll have both of you on sometime.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
It'd be fun to have you both share and have her share her story and culturally, what it was like for her to go just to South Korea and then to come here.
Right.
Those are major directional changes too.
Absolutely. And
in your
the
life.
process too.
Does she have family over there anywhere, or is she?
Yes. She has 5 brothers and 1 sister. And so they all live throughout the world. Like she has a brother that lives in Dubai. Her sister's still in the Philippines. So her family's pretty spread out, but she has no family here in America.
Right.
It's just
So did her family view her coming here like your dad viewed you going just to visit South Korea?
no. She's older, mature. So, and also her parents too passed away. So she didn't have that kind of
Got it.
yeah.
So she's older, more mature. You weren't older and not mature. Is that what you're saying?
Very immature,
Yeah.
right?
Okay, so since I've known you, you've been a worship leader at one church, then you
Yeah.
transitioned to another church, and we're involved in technology. We were talking about, he knows all about the cameras here and the instrumentation and all that stuff here. And then you went to a third church, and you're doing, what is the third church? Worship and something else? I know
so
you're
I'm
preaching some.
Yeah, I'm an associate pastor there,
Okay.
leading worship every week. So a big emphasis on worship.
Okay, so you were a worship leader, and then you took a technology job. Tell us about that transition and what was appealing and kind of why you were attracted to it.
Right. So originally I had prayed about whether or not I should have left. So when I was looking at this opportunity there, and so at the first church I was at, I was still doing a lot of technology. Did an LED wall install, and did a whole new lighting upgrade at that church. So there was a technology element to what I was doing at that church, but I was also doing worship, and so I was juggling a lot of different hats, doing different things. And there was this opportunity at a larger church in the city that was just solely focused on more of the production aspect of it. And so I was like, okay, well, it sounds nice. Like I could just focus on one thing, and I think it's something important too. It's a way to reach people with the gospel. I think there's a lot of, I was thinking about it, there's probably a lot of things I could learn going to a larger church too, because up until this point, I'd worked at, I would say kind of smaller, mid-sized churches, and never really worked at a church with over 1,000 people before. So I was like, yeah, this could be a great learning opportunity. But anyway, so I prayed about it, and I remember I drove, I grew up in Millard, and so I was driving through Millard, and I drove by our old house, and I was just thinking about just God's faithfulness. So that house was the house that in Millard that I gave my life to Jesus in. And I was like, wow, God, you've been so faithful to me. That's where I met you at. I remember the times I prayed that I would be a worship leader. And then now here's all these different times that the Lord fulfilled that. I had prayed for a wife before I ever knew she existed. And the Lord was so faithful to me. And so anyway, so all this stuff was on my mind, and I just prayed about it. I was like, Lord, where do you want me to go? Because there's good ministry that can take place at this church. There's good ministry that could take place at this church. So which one? And I felt like the Lord just gave me grace and was like, wherever you decide to go, I'm going to be faithful to you no matter what.
And I've kind of experienced that a number of times. I want to go, how did you learn the technology side? Did it just hands-on learn as you go, or did you get some training somewhere, or?
A lot of YouTube. Oh yeah, I love YouTube University. That's what I call it.
Okay.
You get your degree from YouTube.
Okay.
A lot of YouTube, and a lot of one advantage that you have in a small church is you just get thrown into things.
Sure.
You get thrown in hey, we don't have the church doesn't have a guitar player. Can you learn guitar?
Right.
Or hey, we don't know how to get the live stream to work. Can you do it? And so I just kind of always got thrown into different projects and found out a way to figure it out. And thankfully, a lot of it was through YouTube and through networking too, just connections with people. Right. There's some friends over at Lifegate Church that I've had help with all sorts of projects when we couldn't figure out why things weren't working. Right. And they helped us out in a pinch, oh, we have a funeral tomorrow and we can't get the live stream going. What do we need to do? And so just kind of things like that, networking with people, and then also just the power of the internet.
Our paths crossed at that second church. I was working there too. I was brought on in a different way than you were brought on. You saw a job and basically applied for it. Is that correct?
That's right.
In my case, they created a job. They saw me create a job, which was, yours was full-time, as I recall. Mine was part-time, so I could keep traveling, But our paths crossed there. And so I learned a lot of things also at a big church, because I just a simple thing, a number of computer programs. Planning Center is one of them.
Right.
I learned Planning Center, and in fact, I just deleted it off my phone because I'm not using it anymore, But I can always go back to it if I get to a place where I need it, And so I thought, I was there just about 2 years, and I learned a lot of things, and I feel like nothing's wasted by God. Even though I wasn't there 5 years, 10 years, whatever, in that almost 2 years' time, I learned enough about large employee dynamics, and how different people think and how different people respond to projects. And as you know, at that church, if you're going to have a activity or an event, you have to fill out this form and you go through all these steps, and I was always in a small church like you. I was doing all those steps myself.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And now all these other people were doing them, And so it was just directional change of a way of thought, a way of thinking. And, I think you and I have talked before. I believe that someday I'll live in Washington, D.C., and I believe that I'll be involved in something kind of major there. And so having this in my background will be helpful.
Right. It's
So,
like a tool that you can use with
right,
you and take
correct,
with you.
yeah. So you moved from that church to where you're at now. So what's the name of the church you're at now?
Creekside. Creekside
Creekside.
Church, and we're in Council Bluffs.
Okay. And how did that transpire? I mean, not,
Yeah.
just give us a little, whatever,
Right.
whatever you want to share. And whatever you don't
Yeah.
want to share, I won't probe, but, whatever you want to share and just,
Sure. I started meeting with their pastor originally, and so I had known of that church before, but they had a name change a few years ago. So originally I knew it as a different church.
And I had preached at that church a number of years ago too,
Okay,
under a
so
different
it's
pastor.
probably right. And so I remember one of the older pastors is a good friend of mine too. And then I just saw, wow, okay, they're changing some things, have a new name. So I was like, maybe I should just talk to the pastor, get to know him a little bit. He seems like he's a very visionary person. And so, yeah, we started talking. Actually, the first time I met with him, I told him, I'm not looking at leaving my current role, because they were looking to hire someone. And I was like, I'm not looking, I'm happy where I'm at. But we started talking, and I think we probably had coffee like 3 different times. And by the third time, I started feeling more of like God was opening a door there for us. And yeah, so praying about it was a big thing. And I really kind of felt like a call more towards that region, honestly, to get back into Council Bluffs. So when I first got my start in ministry, it started in Council Bluffs.
Okay.
That was like 10 years ago. And so I originally worked as like a youth pastor at this church in Council Bluffs 10 years ago. And I always just loved the people over there. They're just hardworking, down to earth, just good people, And so I felt like a call from the Lord to go back into that area. And, sure enough, you have this church that's opening the door for me. And
Right.
so we were like, okay, Lord, well, let's step into this. And so we've been there just a couple of months now, but it's been really cool. Originally, I didn't anticipate being a worship leader again. I was just going to come on as like the associate pastor, but their worship leader has stepped down. And so it was like, okay, maybe God's orchestrating this here, and I'm needed in a new capacity now. So, okay, I'll
You've
step
done
in.
some preaching there too, right?
Yep, and we'll be
And you
doing
like
some
that.
too.
At the previous church where we were at, I saw you,
Yeah.
even after I left, I saw you doing some preaching and teaching and ministry that way too. So you're gifted at discovering what the Word of God says and then revealing it to people. So.
And I'll be preaching in October too, so I'm looking forward to doing a sermon again. So that's one nice thing about
I'll be
it.
preaching in October too, but it'll be in Indianapolis and Hot Springs, Arkansas, and maybe in Pennsylvania. So, yeah.
We'll switch them around. I'll go to one of yours. You come to mine.
Okay, or you can come with me. I need a traveling companion to Indianapolis. So yeah,
That's
it's a long drive. So anyway, so look at the camera for a minute or two and tell people. Not that one. This one. Tell people. Give some advice on if they're thinking about changing jobs right now. Okay, just whatever comes to your heart and mind. Just or maybe there's an opportunity. Maybe they're not even thinking about it. There's just an opportunity they hadn't even thought about. They're like you. I wasn't. You where you're at. You say, I'm not looking to leave. Okay. That's what you told the pastor the first time you met. That's what you just said. So maybe they're not even thinking about leaving, but there's this opportunity. What advice would you give them?
Yeah, I would say you have to wait on the Lord, right? Wait on the Lord. And a big part of that is actually taking the time to seek God and to hear his voice. He said that my sheep know my voice. So, and when we're so busy and we're so consumed with our work or what we're doing, or maybe it's family, maybe it's things going on at home, it can be really hard to hear the voice of the Lord. So I would say take time. I think about when I went from that first church to the other church, like I was just driving through the neighborhood, and it was just me and Jesus talking. Take some time to really hear from God. I think there is something about a rhema word from the Lord, like this right now word from God for where you need to be at. And God's good. Like he's a good God. He cares about the little things. So of course he cares about your life and about your future and about what path you should take next. The book of James tells us that if any of you lacks wisdom, ask God. He can give you wisdom. But I think sometimes the problem is we don't take the time to ask, right? So we go on our own understanding. We lean on our own understanding and our own logic. And then what ends up happening is we may end up in a situation where it wasn't where God had told us to go to or be at. But also God is great in his power and his might that he can turn all things to good. You know, he turns everything and he's able to work all sorts of things together. But yeah, so I think it all comes down to seeking the Lord, hearing his voice. And another thing, Jay, I'll hit on, and it's something that that the Lord just keeps reminding me of lately. And it's like to go full circle, to look back on where you started. And I think there's something there. For me, when I was a little kid, I was fortunate. There was a lot of people that prophesied over my life when I was little. And I think about those words now, and I believe that the Lord has told me, and maybe he's telling other people, to go back on, like, to look at those words. What was God saying? And I believe it. Like when Paul told Timothy, think back on those prophetic words that were spoken over you. Hold on to those. I think that there's something about that. And so I've been looking back on some of those words that were even like spoken over me when I was younger. And I think there's something in it. And it's like the Lord's been reminding me of it. Like, hey, this is what I called you to do. This is the things that I have spoken over your life. And I don't know, Jay, do you believe we're in the getting close to the end?
And speaking the word, I'll just give you an example. So Sunday, Rebecca and I were at Harvest. We had as an elder. And as soon as I walked in, there was a new worship leader up front that I had not seen. And I heard the word prophecy. I mean, just heard it as clear as, And then later on, there was an exhortation by the pastor, and I heard the word prophecy again.
Yeah.
And then later on in a worship song, I heard the word prophecy. But up to that point, there had been no prophecy in the church, that morning. And I was going to text the pastor, Pastor Jeff, and I was going to send him a text, say, here's what I'm hearing. And God said, no, go tell him. Share it, speak it, declare it, get it out. And I did not want to go up there because we hadn't been in a while because of my traveling schedule. And I hate walking all the way up front where he's seated to interrupt his flow of worship. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I just felt like God said, no, go up there, just tell him what I just told you. So I went up there and I told him. And he said he would share it later, and he thanked me for it. And then I sat down, and then within 3 minutes, 3 or 4 people in the congregation started prophesying, one after another, and Pastor Jeff got up and had some prophecy for some of our guests. So in total, there were 6 or 7 prophecies that happened. It was like, I don't think I had anything to do with it at all, okay? Other than maybe sharing with Pastor Jeff and speaking and getting out in the atmosphere.
Right.
Okay? I was just obedient to do that, Again, I told him, I have no clue. I don't know if you're supposed to encourage people to prophesy or to study it or to start a class or, I have no clue. All I heard was the word prophecy 3 times. And then, I'm telling you the truth, literally after I did it, within 2 or 3 minutes, people started standing up and prophesying over the building, So it was like God was confirming,
right?
And if I believe that, he confirmed for you multiple times from the church in Council Bluffs to the 2 churches in Omaha, back to Council Bluffs, confirming with your wife, traveling, everything. If you're listening to God, you're going to get the confirmations.
That's right.
Or he's going to give you another direction. He said, no, that's not right. That's not where I want you to go. And
well, I think just in general, it's like, I believe, I'm not sure about what you believe, I'm sure you probably agree, but I think the Lord's, returning soon. Like, I believe we're in the last days. And so if time is limited, if time is short, then it's crucial that we know why we're here and what we're here for.
Right.
And so, I look at the words that were spoken to me when I was younger, and I'm just like, okay, like this is part of it. And so I think it's crucial that we stay focused, on our purpose in this day and age. Like, we know, hey, time's limited. I need to be on purpose.
And God has a way of leading them. Just real briefly, when we lived in Dallas, I knew we were going to be going somewhere. I just didn't know where. Okay, I had a sense it might be Omaha because I'd received a word, but I wasn't sure. And one day I just felt the Lord said, "Let's go for a drive." So like, who's driving? He said, "Well, you're driving. I'll be guiding." Because I told my family we're going for a drive with God. They looked at me like kind of strange, but anyway. So he took me out on the road, and he just kept saying, "Turn right here, turn left there, whatever." And I am now, at some point, I'm on some highway that I've never been on in Dallas. I don't even know where I am. I'm at least 30 miles from my house. Okay, and I was like, where are we going? We're going on this drive. I believe I'm listening to you. He said, well, about 5 miles down the road, there's going to be a church on the right-hand side, and I want you to pull into that church parking lot. And I said, okay. So as we're getting close, and then he said, when you pull in, you're going to see a pastor's name on the sign, but they don't have a pastor, okay? But I want you to go in and ask for the pastor. I go, well, if they don't have a pastor, I'm going to look foolish,
Right.
And he said, well, they're going to tell you that he already left. And he's not here, even though his name is still on the sign. So I get there, I'm hesitant, I go in, I knock on the door, I go inside, I talk to a couple of the staff people, and I say, I'd like to talk to your pastor. He said, well, we don't have one. And I said, well, there's a name on the sign. He said, yeah, but he left recently, and we're waiting for a new pastor, So I said a short prayer for him, and I went out in the car. I said, okay, God, what's this about? He said, I just wanted to show you that I can take you to a church anywhere in the world that doesn't have a pastor,
Wow.
okay? I just want to show you I can lead you and guide you and direct you, So I feel like he's done that with you. He's done that with me. He's going to continue to do it. We're still here. You may be at Creekside forever. You may only be there 5 or 10 years, and then he'll lead you somewhere else, okay? So anyway, our time is running
That's right.
short. We have 45 seconds. Would you just have a closing prayer for those?
Sure thing.
Yeah, you do, yeah.
All right. Lord, I just pray for everyone that's watching today, God. I pray your hand of protection over their life. I pray for those that may not know you today, Lord. I just pray that, Lord, that you would open the eyes of their heart to see you, to know you. Lord, I pray that they would feel your presence as they watch this program from wherever they're at. Lord, I pray that they would feel your presence, that they would encounter you today, and that, Lord, that you would give direction and purpose to their life in a world full of distractions and misinformation. Lord, I pray that you would bring them clarity today, in Jesus' name.
All right, thank you, Mitch. God bless you. Thank you to all of you. Tune in next time for directions, and we'll talk to you then. Bye-bye.